So that's CrossFit. Switching gears. Now, I'm going to be an MMA fighter. I want to go fight in the UFC. I'm thinking about taking on Connor in about 1 year time. So again, MMA, very performance-based. How's that going to differ from a CrossFit athlete, which is very performance-based? So here's I'm going to throw this at you too. You can answer this whenever. But a long time ago, me and you had this discussion, and we were talking about fighters because I'm a huge fight fan. And you said you would not train. We were talking about boxers. And I said, Floyd Mayweather, Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, all these guys run 15, 20 miles to get ready for a fight, nonstop, like logging massive amounts of miles. And you said that was stupid, that you would have them doing intervals, particular to their sport, because they're only out there for 3 to 5 minutes at a time. So I want you to hit on that somewhere in here, but also go ahead and tell me how you would train an MMA fighter who also has to spar and do their sports. If they're a wrestler, they're probably doing more mat work. If they're a striker, they're doing a lot of mitt work. How do you balance the strength and then the endurance part of that with an MMA athlete?
So I'll answer your question first as far as the running goes. And this will just be a good time to just like, I'll die on this hill. I think regardless, unless you are a marathoner or like a competitive like 5K racer or something like that, I think running anything outside of like 1 to 2 miles tops is stupid. And I don't think anybody should do it. Like probably, I don't take, I've been a lot better on taking like extreme end of the spectrum stances on things because I've always been proved wrong. But the way I see it, and I've felt this way for a while, I think like that, you have all out sprinting, which, probably outside of 100 meters, like you're not really sprinting anymore. I mean, you can do like a fast 250, stuff like that. But just to keep this easy to understand, like you have an all out sprint. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you basically have like walking. And in the middle, you have this like grungy, muddy kind of B-level effort, like jog pace that you see a lot of people do. Like these people will be doing for 10 to 15 mile runs. I hate that. I don't think anybody should do that. Like I think as a species, humans, we were made to walk very, very well. We can walk extremely well. And we can sprint extremely well. But that middle ground, gray area, like there's a lot of research that like we're not the greatest like long distance runners. Like our body, like there's a reason. Like people always like, oh, this person, they died when they were 40 years old and they ran marathons. They ran like 10 miles a day. Like they were super healthy. Like no, like running 10 miles every day is not good for you. Like your cortisol goes through the roof. If you want to look at each stride as a repetition, like that's tons of volume, tons of wear and tear on your joints, on your body. Like to me, it just doesn't make sense, especially when you start to talk about a power-driven sport such as boxing or MMA, when you have to be fast and explosive. I just feel like there's way better ways to develop an aerobic base than road work. So getting into the specific question here on MMA.
For instance, too, and I'll say this, that kind of backs you up. When I train, I typically train more interval type. When I do cardio, it's conditioning work. It's sled pushes, it's rowers, it's sprints. I was able to go run a half marathon with zero training. I mean, I didn't set the world on fire, but I ran it in 2 hours nonstop jogging. Like, so.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. It's like if we're in a position, if a human being is ever in a position where they're on foot and they need to get after something, like they're going to sprint after it. And you can't sustain that for very long. If you're talking from an evolution standpoint, like this is how we evolved as a species. Like you can't all out 100% sprint for very long. Like there's a reason. So you're very explosive and very fast for a short amount of time. So we can sprint after something. And if it's going to take us longer than that, like then we can walk. And like an average male, not even an overweight male, an average male has enough fat on his body, so this is not an obese guy, to walk like thousands and thousands of miles. Like we are so efficient at walking, it's ridiculous. Like I read a stat one time, like I think the average male has enough body fat to sustain a walk to walk from like Detroit to Washington D.C. like 3 or 4 times. Like without taking, like we can metabolize fat, and we have enough fat on our bodies to do that if we're walking. Like that's how efficient we are at walking. You ain't gonna be jogging that. Like our bodies just, it's that gray area. It's in the middle. Like we're just not good at it. So like, but there's a lot of fighters like mentally, like they need to do that. Like they feel like they have to do that. So if in that case, like if you want to do it early in a camp, do it early in an off season, early in a camp, like that's cool. But once go time starts, like we're like, especially an MMA fighter, man, those guys take a beating even more than boxers, because they're doing the freaking the grappling, the rolling, jujitsu, all the stuff on the mat, we're on the ground and all that stuff. We want as little wear and tear in the body as possible. So I'm not trying to have you go run 10 miles and just pound your joints and stuff on the road. Like it's just not going to happen. It's just not smart in my opinion. To answer your question as to the difference, like even though MMA and CrossFit is both performance based, the big difference is, whereas CrossFit, the sport is lifting. The sport is, basically what we're doing in the gym for a big portion of it. MMA is different. It's a completely different animal. So the strength work, the stuff in the gym with the bars and the weights and all that stuff, that has to take a backseat to the technical skill. So you're getting in the cage and fighting somebody. So you need to make sure that your sparring's on par, your wrestling's on par, your grappling, your jiu-jitsu, whatever you're going to do, like that needs to be the main focus of the training camp. The strength portion, the strength training needs to complement all of that. So basically, if you're prioritizing these things, that stuff needs to come first. Or like, people like the metaphor of like, if you have a jar that you need to fill up, like you put the rocks in it, and then you can put like pebbles, and then sand fills up all the rest of the cracks to try and get it all. Like obviously, if you fill it up with sand first, there's no room for your big rocks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like with an MMA fighter, like your big rocks, the things that need to go in first are your sparring, your mitt work, your jiu-jitsu work, your rolling, all that stuff. That needs to go in first. Your pebbles and stuff like that, that's going to be, the strength work and all that other stuff. And then, your sand to round it out might be like your, road work and conditioning. Like, there's time for that stuff if we got it, like you can throw it in there. But so that's the big difference. That's the big difference there is my job as a strength coach. I need to complement the meat and potatoes of his training program, which is going to be all that other stuff. The conditioning aspect of stuff though, like I said, road work early in off season or early in a camp before the wear and tear starts to, accumulate. But as that fight gets closer, the sparring's going to increase. The training, the camp is going to get more specific to what they're doing. So conditioning wise, like they're going to start sparring 5-minute rounds. They're going to start doing things like that to start mimicking the fight. So that's going to really, keep my job easy as far as conditioning goes. And then the strength work as that fight gets closer. When you're talking 2-3 weeks out from a fight, like we're not going to make any gains in strength by that point. So as that fight gets closer, we're just trying to A, stay recovered, B, stay injury free. So we're doing a lot of, maybe mobility work, structural work, things like that. And that's a big one too in MMA is mobility. You're going to find yourself in some weird positions in MMA. Like you got guys trying to bend your arms back. You got to sprawl to stop takedowns, things like that. So your mobility needs to be key in those positions. You need to be strong in those positions. So that's things that you can start to focus on too. I don't think, yeah. So that's a big thing. So yeah, just recovery is huge with fighters because they're legitimately getting their butts kicked for a living. Those are big things. I just had a note here. You want to emphasize some grip strength. So like that's an overlooked thing when it comes to fighters, especially MMA fighters. Like you got guys, you have to be ripping at grabbing things, grabbing their arms. trying to do submission. So grip work's big, neck work. You're going to want your neck is your first line of defense, taking a punch or concussion, like having that strong neck to resist anything, or you have to bridge off your neck if you're on the ground, grappling, wrestling. That's why all wrestlers have thick ass necks. Like, so those are things that, just little minor details that you'd have to, throw in, that a lot of people probably wouldn't think about. But
Yeah, I didn't think about that at all. So yeah, especially. So MMA, okay. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I like the cardio approach. Last
yeah, you want to stay explosive. That's the thing. Like when I see 10, 15-mile runs, you're just teaching your body to work at that B level. You're teaching your body to be slow, to be less efficient. Like,
I think about like the olden days. Think about it in life and death. So say you got 100 yards. So you're at the 100-yard line, and there's a lion at the 0. So there's 100 yards between you two. You have 50 yards to safety. All right, if you've been practicing sprinting and you've taught your body to sprint, chances are you're going to have a good chance to make it before that lion catches your ass. If you're a marathon runner and you don't have any explosive muscles in your body, like you're probably going to get ate. You're probably done. You're probably done for.
That's what I was talking about. Like when it comes to like the evolution, if you look at it from a stance of evolution, like our nervous system, giving us a shot of adrenaline, like getting in that fight or flight response, like all that stuff points us to being able to either get really strong and explosive or really fast to try and sprint for a short distance to try and get to safety, like, or wherever we need to go. We're either trying to get to safety or maybe trying to get our dinner, like whatever it is, like it's a short distance. Like, you ain't gonna see nobody jogging after a deer for 10 miles trying to get a deer. Like, it's just not gonna happen.
Well, do you see lions jog after deer? Do you see lions jogging to get to where they need to go?
That's what I'm saying. Like,
elephants walk when they need to go somewhere.
yeah, if we have to go anywhere further than that, then we're gonna walk there. Like, it just doesn't make sense to utilize more energy to get there a little bit faster. Like, it's just, like I said, I'm going to die on that hill. I don't think it's good for you at all. I don't think anybody should really be doing it outside of people that are competing in marathons or long distance runs. So,
all right, last one. I have a feeling this one's going to overlap a little bit, so probably don't need to spend a lot of time on it. But I was just cast as Kratos for God of War. So, I got the bald head. I'm going to grow a beard.
maybe that's going to be.
So I need to gain about 35 pounds of muscle.
I'd say a lot more than that.
Or we can just use Robert Pattinson, who's cast as Batman and is apparently can't put on any muscle right now, is what I'm hearing. So I need to, not only do I need to be jacked, but I need to look good. So basically, kind of like a bodybuilder, but I'm an average Joe. I don't have any training experience. How are you approaching?
So, like, legitimately, this is probably, like when you set goals for yourself, like you have, short-term goals, you have like long-term goals, and then you have like stretch goals. Like if you really exceed your expectations, like my stretch goal for myself in my career is to land some sort of movie role for somebody. Like that would be like, that would be so awesome. I think it would be so fun. When I look at, just because, we're into it, all the superhero movies and stuff. Like, I always love seeing the shape these guys come into and all that stuff.
It's a huge reason I even got in the gym.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We touched on that in our movie list, the impact that stuff has on us. So to kind of be able to do that and have it all come full circle would be pretty awesome. But, so the first thing I would do is I would look at the character of the movie, and typically in most cases, like if with your examples, like Kratos or Batman, we actually have like a point of reference. We know what this character looks like already. So we have an idea of what needs to happen. So we can look at the character, we can look at the person that was cast, and we need to see what needs to happen here. So that's step number one, obviously. So, in your case, if you got cast as Kratos, we got to defy the laws of physics with that one.
If I land this role, I'll hire you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Hey.
No, but so like Robert Pattinson, and like being Batman or whatever. Like who knows what they were going for. But something I would do is I would, and like you even know this from when I had you do the Bane program, is I like to look at the character and I would try to almost kind of mimic the training style, almost getting in the head of that character and kind of how would that character train. So like if Kratos was real, like how would he train himself, or how would he have gotten into the shape and condition that he's in? And I would try to mimic that the best I could. Like obviously, it's not going to be to a T, but just to try to help the actor get into the role, get into the character. But I think ultimately it would have a more like realistic sort of transformation and fit the role a little bit better. So like if you look at Kratos, like he's the god of war. I mean, this is back in like Spartan times. So I'm gonna have you do a lot of strongman style training. Like we're gonna do keg clean and presses, like picking up really weird objects, like farm boy strength, dude. Like let's go bale some hay, let's go chop down some trees, let's go, chop this freaking tree down, then pick this big log up and do some like log presses and things like that. Like pick up all these awkward things and carry them and just really tax the body in these strange ways like that. And when you do that in conjunction with like a typical lifting routine, which we would still do. We would still do that stuff. We would still deadlift and all your big stuff like that. But when you do that, like I look at it from a stance of like almost like that same metaphor of like the jar, putting the rocks and stuff in there. Like yeah, your deadlifts and your back squats and your bench presses, like that's gonna hit, all your main muscle groups. But then when you start like chopping trees or picking up logs and picking up heavy rocks and stuff like that's going to start to get all those like in between spots, man. You're going to start working these muscles in a lot different ways and taxing these things in a way that you've never seen before, your body's never seen before, and you're going to get a lot of sweet adaptations from that.
That would probably be like my bodybuilder version of like a bicep curl or tricep extension. The picking up and the like those would be my fine tuning. Like I wouldn't be doing any.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah. So like if you look at from a, and like what that's going to do is like yeah, your body's going to be subject to stress and you're going to get some crazy awesome adaptations from that. But also dude, like if you're chopping trees down and then picking up this log, like it's not a perfectly even distributed barbell, it's not a 1 1 3/4 inch diameter barbell. Like we're picking up thick fat rocks or logs and stuff. Like you're going to get super strong from that. Like you're going to get like basically farm boy strength, man. Like you're going to be able to just manhandle anything that comes into your path, and like that's going to carry over mentally, man. Like I said, that's going to help you kind of really embrace the character and kind of become that character. So I would do that as best I could. I would try to kind of put you in a situation or in an environment where that character would kind of lift or train, and then yeah, I mean, outside of that, like you kind of like Robert Pattinson. Like I saw a post of him, like he was all hot and sweaty from doing like a jujitsu, session, and I'm like, why is he needs to put masks on, dude? Like why? Like I understand, like okay, you can do some of that stuff, and obviously I didn't see the extent of his training program, but like, why am I seeing that and not seeing a picture of him deadlifting or squatting or something? Like I don't want to see that. Like he's not gonna get jacked from that. Like,
My biggest pet peeve if that pile, and I'm calling him a pile until I see it. If he comes in playing Batman at 160 pounds and he looks like Edward Cullen, nobody's going to see that movie. No superhero comic book fan is going to watch that movie.
it's just the thing. It's like maybe, and like I said, I haven't seen the extent of his training program, and maybe the jujitsu stuff. Like, hey, Batman can fight, so maybe they're almost kind of doing along the same lines of what I would do. But like, let me see some lifting from him. Let me see him put that dude needs to put some size on big time. He needs to get stronger. Like, so like if I was training him, dude, that would be like those are our big rocks. If I'm training Robert Pattinson for Batman, those are our big rocks. That's going in that jar first. Like I'm not gonna fill, jujitsu is not gonna be top of the list. That's the sand. If we fill that jar with sand first, we got no more room for those rocks. So those rocks are lifting. That's our lifting and our eating. For someone like him needs to put size on, you know, obviously if this is a movie role, we're probably getting started a year out, 6 months to a year out from shooting. So you got plenty of time. Like early on, we're eating everything in sight. We're lifting heavy. We're lifting a lot. And let's put some body fat on. Like I'm totally cool with that. We want to put some body fat on to A, sustain the training, but B, like when you're trying to put size on, like your body's gonna be in a state of recovery a lot. Like we don't want to get fat or anything, but we want to put a little bit of body fat on so that way we have like that little cushion of energy to keep replenishing and recovering from the workouts. So, and then obviously as it gets closer, we can start to dial it in with the nutrition and conditioning and things like that to kind of start to bring that stuff out. So, but yeah, man, that'd be sweet. I mean, I would love to do something like that. I think that I offered my services for free when he was cast. I didn't badmouth it or anything. I was just like, hey man, I'll train him for free.
I wonder who is training. Do you know who's training him? Is there a big name that's training him?
I know the jujitsu post I saw. I don't know how to pronounce the dude's name, but it's like every Hollywood person goes to this dude for jujitsu training. Like I follow him on Instagram and like he posts pictures with like everybody, like training them like jujitsu. So
I mean, I'd feel a lot more comfortable if it was like Maximus or Mark Twight, somebody that I've seen their the proofs in the pudding. Don Saladino,
Mike
Blevins, who trained I don't know Hemsworth's trainer, but he did a damn good job.
Yeah.
He's from Australia. I forget his name.
Dude that trained Michael B. Jordan too.
Oh, Calliet. I love. Yeah.
He's cool.
The shit.
Yeah, I mean that's basically how I would approach a movie role. So
all right, so let's do a quick review, and then we're gonna do a hard out because this thing's ran probably close to an hour. So bodybuilder, I was taking notes, just to do a quick little. So bodybuilder, morning walk staple, no matter what time of season.
And that's a staple for all of these too. Like I would have bodybuilder, CrossFit, and
just right. Good for health.
And I've said that it's a staple for anybody because we emphasize no matter what your goal is, you have to emphasize health first, and that's just all. It aids recovery, aids blood flow. It's going to help body composition. It just checks all good boxes. There's not one goal out there where that's going to be a detriment. So that's for everybody.
So we got our morning walks. You're going to follow a push-pull leg split. You're going to do that 6 days a week, repeating that, emphasizing different types of lifts. 1 day off a week, 45-minute sessions for bodybuilder. And you're going to do high-intensity cardio early on in your camp. As you start getting closer to showtime, you're going to scale that back. Going into CrossFit, you're looking at your range of motion, your end range of motions first. With a lot of Olympic lifting, your body's got to be able to handle that. And then you're going to periodize your training, emphasizing strength first. So strength always first.
Yeah, that's what separates the elite from everybody else is the strength.
Yeah, 100%. And there's a reason why the CrossFit Games save the strength, the big time strength for the last day, because it's the most exciting, and that's where the separation occurs for the athletes. MMA, so strength takes the back seat in MMA because of their sparring, their grappling, all that stuff, trying to keep them healthy. You're going to emphasize neck, grip strength, neck strength. And the cardio is going to be intervals, not long distance. Correct? Did I miss anything on that?
That's I mean, like I told you, like when I wanted to do an amateur fight with boxing, and like the IWT, I think is like the perfect secret weapon, like for fighters. I mean, it's used a lot in CrossFit too. Like you could use that for CrossFit too, but like it's the way to go, man. Like you can, like the IWT interval weight training basically it's a modality of interval training. basically you can choose an exercise and follow it up with like a 2 to 3 minute aerobic effort. Like it's the perfect
It's hell.
thing.
I remember those things. Those are hard as hell.
Yeah, it's the like you could scale these any way you want to make them as intense or intricate as you would want to make them. Like for a fighter, you could, okay, we want to emphasize some power and strength and stuff. So let's start out with like, let's do like 6 cleans and then go right into 2 to 3 minutes of heavy bag work, or mitt work. Like you could make that so specific as the fight gets closer. As it's further away, we can just do like typical, let's do some high stuff on a rower or things like that. Just start to build that base up. And then as we get closer, let's get more specific. Let's start turning that into maybe some more, heavy bag work or mitt work, spot, like whatever you want to do. Like there's no way a fighter is not going to be ready for a fight doing training like that, like, and not doing that long distance stuff. Like you can say that stuff for early off season, early fight camps, but as that stuff gets closer, man, I completely take that stuff out.
Cool. And then last one, movie star role. You're mimicking the character first, obviously.
It's art. It's art. At the end of the day, man, it's a movie. It's an art. It's an art form, and I'm gonna contribute to that, man. We're gonna embrace the character because those are the best performances.
So that one was kind of just a fun one. There's not a lot of people that train like a movie star, but I just wanted to throw that in there.
Well, it's so individualized too. Like it's so hard. Like obviously, depending on the actor being cast and the character that needs to be, he needs to look like, that could look at 1,000 different ways. So I mean, I just tried to answer it with my staples, things that would remain constant no matter who or what it was. So
cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna wrap this up. Guys, if you got any, if you enjoyed this kind of format, this kind of interview format, not only and the content, obviously, let us know in the comments. So comment, like it, share it. If you want to know how we would eat for each one of these, that's another one. That's a podcast we could do at a later date, because each one's obviously going to have different nutritional demands. Let us know that as well. Again, I'm Will Roy. It's Chris Roy, Roy Boy Standard. Find us on iTunes, Spotify, and if you're watching on the video, at the YouTube channel. So anything else? Anything I missed?
Yeah, man, you didn't comment at all on my trimmed beard or my new haircut after all the shit you've been giving.
Oh, yeah, you did get a haircut.
Yeah. I mean, look at this flow, dude. This is like.
Yeah, you still should have cut it shorter.
I mean, this is like straight Hemsworth.
It does look better. It doesn't look like a goat, at least.
This is my Hemsworth look, dude.
And all that. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, right?
But, all right, guys. Hopefully we'll come down to the end of this quarantine garbage. I'm calling it garbage because it's just garbage at this point. And yeah, I'm not even going to tell you to stay at home anymore. Just stay safe. Stay safe. And, till the next episode, we're out.